they haven't come in yet, but they're talking about doing it. Well, basically, it will be impossible to evict your tenant. So if your tenant hasn't done anything wrong, they can live there for the rest of their lives. So a bit like a regulated tenancy from years and years ago. So basically, in the old days, I would be a landowner and I would rent my house to Robert. Robert would be a tenant and he would have a rent book and he would pay rent on a weekly basis, and it would be impossible for me to ever get him out. It even got to the extreme where he could pass that tenancy on to his children and I couldn't get them out either. Also, it got to the point where it was so strong for the tenants, I couldn't put his rent up. So if he moved out and he passed it on, I could put the rent up, but if he lived there until he was 90, I could only charge the same rent. Okay, so that was changed obviously with the Housing Act and with them bringing in ASTs, etc., to protect the tenant and to protect ourselves. Reading through this, which is a proposal at the moment.
It's proposed to be from next year.
It's basically going back to the old days. So it will be, rent will be adjudicated, so I can't suddenly say to my tenant, I'm doing a rent review every 6 months. It's every 2 years?
Every 2 years, yeah.
Every 24 months I can do a rent review, and that has to be at the market rent.
Yeah,
so I have to be charging the same as everybody else on that street. So I could, it's all of it, it's a bit like the wear and tear allowance, in a sense that I get rid of that telly that doesn't work, and I want to put a flat screen TV in there, but I can only claim back what the telly is worth that I've taken out of the property. It's the same with this. Why would I be a really good landlord in the street and give my tenants everything that they want, where I could only charge exactly the same rent as another landlord in the same street who didn't give them anything? So it's sort of going a bit back in time. But the worst thing about it is the fact of non-eviction. So if I wanted to let that tenant go and let a new tenant come in, or change it into a HMO, or do it as a student let, etc., I'm not able, unless they've done something against their tenancy, to even apply to evict them. So it will take away, at the moment, you rent your house to Robert, you decide next year you don't want to rent it anymore. You just write to Robert and say, at the end of your AST, I'm not going to be renewed, because I want my house back. Under the new rules, in there, if they get them through, you won't be able to do that. That will be classified as a rental property, no matter whether you want to rent it out anymore or not.
Will you be able to sell it if you wanted to?
No.
No.
It's the same process.
What mortgage company would lend you against that set of rules then? Because you could rent a house to Robert and you not pay your mortgage,
yeah,
and the mortgage company won't be able to get that back because...
Won't be able to get him out.
So they won't lend against it?
No,
as
long as he keeps paying his rent,
yeah, and
he's not done anything wrong. That's the difficulty, yeah. So it is the question, are they then going back to the old days where the only people who could afford to buy were people who could buy for cash, the really rich? The government have got to do is that they have to have a proportion of property that is rental. So in the old days they would keep that proportion up by building council houses, but they don't want to do that anymore because obviously it costs so much money, so it's simpler to force you that you have no choice with your property. So it's the same as Article 4, which most people don't realise, and my surveyor, and I can't be bothered to argue with him, but if you read the rule of Article 4, once you've been given planning permission to convert your property from a single let to a HMO, you will not be able to move it back to a single let, because it's the denomination of units. So you take your one unit, which is your single let, you convert it into a 6-bedroom HMO here in Milton Keynes, which you have to have Article 4 for. Milton Keynes then say they've got 6 units. And because of their denomination of housing, if they allow you to convert it back, they lose 5 units. And they can't afford to do that.
So you'd have to sell it back to the market as an HMO?
Yes. So the only person who could buy it was somebody else who wanted to run it as a HMO.
Which is a very
yeah.
niche market.
Yeah. But, you know, obviously the council have a responsibility to house people. The whole point is that with the shortage of housing, so the shortage of rental property, they're looking for more and more ways to force us to rent. Yeah? And they're looking, once they've got us under their thumb, if you like, then they'll start bringing in things like rent capping. But there's also the other side of the coin, which I harp on about, is that we are quite a powerful denomination of the population now. So by joining the NLA, etc., that gives you a voice. And if we all suddenly said, I'm not going to rent it anymore, what would they have to do?
Yeah.
They'd have to go turn back, wouldn't they? So, you know, you've got to think about these things, have a look at them, and start to get involved in your market. Okay, so this one is obviously the next big one that we've got. So if we leave, what will happen to our house prices? House price. So Rick's announced this week that we would see a short-term house price fall. So if we left the EU for 3 to 4 months, we would see house prices take a dive. And yet you read other things and then they say, no, that won't happen. So who is it that's telling you the truth? I still argue that nobody is telling me why I should vote. So you've got leave because I don't want any immigrants. How many immigrants in here? All of us, aren't we? Somewhere down the line. Yeah, so I don't want me anymore. So I'm definitely not voting for that. Yeah? And then if I stay in, what am I going to get if I stay in? Nothing. I don't know. I don't see whatever, which way we go, all of a sudden we're going to have a shortage of people who want to rent our properties. I can't see it having any effect on it at all. And I can't see them saying to our friend from Poland, 2 years from now, you've got to give up your job, you've got to give up your house, and you've got to go back to Poland. Can you see that? No. So that's not going to happen either. And as you said, it doesn't matter whether we're in or out, there'll still be people coming.
Yeah.
And there'll still be people going.
Yeah.
Okay, so buy-to-let landlords likely to increase rents to offset higher costs. Who's going to do that?
Only if you can.
Only if you can. I don't know. I genuinely, 32 years or whatever I've been doing this now, and for this last 2.5 years, I don't think I've been below 97% occupancy. I've never experienced that, ever. And it's continuous. So that one might be empty for a little while instead of that one. But I've across the board, it's genuinely 97% or above. I've actually had 100% times, which I've never had. Right. So we all think that we'll do this. We'll put rents up to try and deal with the costs. I think personally you've got to, as I've told you before, you've got to come and meet us and look at smarter ways of setting yourselves up as an organisation rather than as an individual in your own. And as I said, next year I don't think it's going to affect that many of you because obviously it's 40% taxpayers or above. But I still think that's the thin end of the wedge unless someone steps up and does something about it. Because I think they'll do the 20% next year, they'll do the 20% the following year, they'll do the 20% the next year, and then they'll bring it from the 40% down. And I think they'll pick on everybody then, if nobody's done anything about it. By which time, if you're not in a limited company, then you will have lost 60 to 80% of your mortgage tax relief. And that's going to have a massive impact on your income. So you need to think smarter, you need to look at this as a proper business, like I've been talking about for months, and come and talk to us and get the right professionals in place to help you run your business in a professional manner.